Y'all know what it is. Y'all know what it's worth. Let's get this merch. Subscribe to the PDH Network. Coming to you with another edition of Money Mention Mondays. And today, the topic of discussion is let's talk about Young Dolph and Nipsey's Monopoly plays. Both of these artists, rest in peace to both of them, were very, very talented and they had so much business sense. They made so many what we would call monopoly plays. They were monopolizing that whole board when it comes to all the different business ventures. So let's kind of break down what those business ventures were for each of them and just talk about it in full. So first and foremost, Young Dolph, as we know, he had his Paper Route Empire label. And so P.R.E is a huge part of his business portfolio and a part of his artistic portfolio. So he was a very prominent rapper and he established the Paper Route Empire P.R.E label. And under that label, we know he had his protege and cousin Key Glock, Big Moochie Grape, Kenny Money, Jay Fizzle, Jody Badass, Snoop Bands, Paper Route Woo, Shy Tana, Big Unk, and of course, he himself, the late great Young Dolph. And so the P.R.E label is a very, very lucrative brand right now. It is a booming venture that there's artists on tour, Key Glock's on tour. His tour dates are selling out. It's been very, very successful and it continues to grow and expand. And within that, we're talking about streaming and we're talking about different sort of intersections between artists in just propelling themselves forward in their notoriety and as far as now representing the P.R.E label. And so that is a very, very huge element of Young Dolph's business ventures. And then aside from that, we have to consider another revenue stream within the P.R.E label is the Paper Route Empire merch. And so on all these tour dates and just across the board throughout the dates, whether people are touring from the label or not, there is Paper Route Empire merch flying off the shelves. There's hoodies on sale, t-shirts with different album covers on it, the Dumb and Dumber album cover. There's lots of different R.I.P. Dolph merch that has been selling out as well. And so we have to consider that this is still all contributing to Dolph's portfolio and showing that there is a lot of diversification in what his legacy is that he established before he passed. And even after his untimely passing, it's still growing. Then we have to also consider, moving away from music, that Dolph was very, very business savvy when it comes to real estate investments. And so some of his residential real estate investments, we know to be his purchasing of homes for his children on their birthdays. And that was him having the foresight to say, I'm going to set my children up to have a certain amount of homes that they own by the time they reach the age of 18 so that they could start their lives with a great foundation. And so that only does add to his business acumen and overall his monopoly plays. In total, it is estimated that Young Dolph owned over 100 real estate properties. Of course, these would be throughout Memphis, throughout Tennessee, and of course beyond. And then we have to remember too, the commercial real estate. And so those are more residential ownerships and real estate investments. But the commercial real estate investing was also very highly publicized and known for Dolph to have his hands in as well. And so commercial real estate being buildings and structures where businesses operate. And so that's going to come with a lot more, lucrative income because you have the businesses that are operating in the commerce that's happening in those buildings. And then shifting gears, Dolph was also known to be a big business investor. And so not just in real estate, but then also in businesses themselves. And so he was reported to have invested in many small and large businesses over the years. And so these are just some of the moves that Young Dolph was publicized to have made, but of course, no telling what moves he had under wraps that were, under wraps and not highly publicized, but still going on, in addition to what he had planned for the future and his legacy. And so now that summarizes some of Dolph's Monopoly plays. Let's talk about Nipsey. So Nipsey, first and foremost, we all know him first through his rap career. He was a very prominent rapper, and he established his record label All Money In. That was created back in 2010, and some of the artists on All Money In include Cuzzy Capone, Kobe Supreme, Pac-Man the Gunman, Wally the Great, Jay Stone, and of course, the late great Nipsey himself was on All Money In. And so with all of these artists on the label, that's going to bring in revenue streams as far as touring, streaming, and overall record sales. And so now moving from All Money In, we have to remember that also another very prominent income stream for Nipsey is Marathon Clothing. That's another one of the very largely publicized business ventures that Nipsey had going on. Now, Marathon Clothing is very, very huge. It's located on Slauson Ave, and we all know that this apparel brand for Nipsey has skyrocketed. It's become very, very popular, and it was always popular throughout the years, even before Nipsey passed away. And so the Marathon Clothing is one of the larger business ventures that Nipsey had going on. In addition, marketing companies. So the Marathon Clothing is widely publicized, and we know that's going to continue to grow years and years to come. All Money In as well, because those artists are still on there and thriving and still putting out music. That there is also a marketing company called the Marathon Agency. And so that is a digital marketing agency that Nipsey made large investments in, early on and throughout. And this is something that he was very excited about to gain prominence and success. And so we'll keep our eyes out for how that company goes on and progresses. Moving on, Nipsey also established a community center called Vector 90. And so Vector 90 is located in the Crenshaw district of Los Angeles as well. And it's for entrepreneurs in the area. And so this was kind of like a leasing center where new entrepreneurs could get like monthly memberships and rent private offices and kind of be able to access structures to do their business and entrepreneurial planning in this facility locally. And kind of tagging on with Vector 90, Nipsey had also established a STEM program called Too Big to Fail. And so within that same Vector 90 location, the STEM program was also there for kids to have access to opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics when it comes to, inner city kids that usually don't have access to these different industries that are going to definitely have lots of opportunities in the future. And so this Too Big to Fail was another one of Nipsey's business moves, and also a part of something that he was doing as an advocate, and it's a part of his activism. Now, in addition, Nipsey was doing a lot of investing in real estate. So he also had commercial real estate that he invested in. He partnered with several investors to acquire is a Santa Monica-based luxury beach hotel with 162 rooms. And so he was definitely looking into the commercial real estate side when it comes to the different hospitality side of things too. And then last but not least, we can't forget that he was also a Puma brand ambassador. So Nipsey in around May 2018 was announced as an ambassador for Puma, and even has a Puma section in the Marathon Clothing store. And so those are just some of the major business moves that are publicized on Nipsey's behalf. But just as I was saying with Dolph, these two men were business minded. They were talented musically, and no telling what they had in plans for 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But it's commendable to see the Monopoly plays that both of these men made. And we're just going to keep our eyes open and watching how these business ventures progress in the future. As always, this was an edition of Money Mention Mondays, and y'all know what it is. Y'all know what it's worth. Let's get this merch. Subscribe to the PDH Network.